6. 2007.
2007.
2008.
Oh my gosh. You did 2008 bicep curls.
That hurt, man.
Oh,
Honestly.
wow. You must be just so jacked. I can't believe that you had that in you. That's incredible. I almost wish I'd
That's
been
just
there
one
right
arm
from the
too.
start.
Yeah, nah, it would have been boring. It's the same old shit, but yeah, got to do the left arm next. But I'll do that after this.
Yeah, because I did think that your left arm was noticeably smaller. How often do you actually go back and keep it, I suppose, equal between sides?
I just start on my left, so I try and do a few more on my left.
Okay.
Then because my left is noticeably
Yeah, sort of shrimpy. Yeah.
weaker, shrimpy. Okay. Yeah, it's like I don't know, like how do you really? I would like to start using my left hand or my left side of my body in just various day-to-day life activities.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do that. Like
No.
I'm going to just could start,
But couldn't hold anything.
jerking off with my left hand. But how far is that going to get you?
No, not very far. I mean, I admire you. I think one of the challenges would be just keeping track of the count. Like, I know it seems silly, but just counting in a row all the way through. How do you know you're not skipping numbers? How do you know you've not zoned out and repeated a number? That's almost like a mental level to this whole exercise as well, beyond just the physical challenge.
Yeah, it is. But I've always kind of thought that about, especially bicep curls because of how many I do usually in one sitting, that it's a mental workout as much as an arm workout.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why the right side of your brain is so much more engorged than the left.
Yeah. What's the right side of the brain again?
I think that's the maths and the numbers one, but now I'm doubting myself.
Yeah. No, maths and numbers never been.
Oh, is that left brain? Oh, I don't know. Is that even true anymore? Do we know if that's true?
I don't know. Even if I have a brain, what's the frontal cortex?
Frontal cortex, is that emotions? I don't know much about. I'm not confident in any of my knowledge of brain.
What about the primal part of the brain? Is that something else completely?
I'm googling frontal cortex. Very scientific. Okay. Reward, attention, short-term memory, task planning, and motivation.
Okay. Yeah, I'm big on reward. The other ones not so much.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should be working on that. Try bashing your head into a table 2008 times. See how it goes.
I actually have. Now that you bring this up, I have actually actually bashed my head against a cupboard once. I think in a fit of depression.
Oh God! In like a dramatic statement, just like a single kind of like a, or was it real like sort of a deliberate, intensive like, there's like I'm trying to hurt myself.
Yeah, it was the second one. Like this is probably, that just got like really real, really sharply, but it was, I was like drinking by myself, and then I was like confused about a few things in my life. So a lot's changed. That's a joke. I have changed. I don't bash my head against the wall anymore. Well, this was one time. Oh God, spiraling already. But I was drunk by myself, and I just started bashing my head against the cupboard, and to the point where I bled.
To the point that you bled?
Yeah.
What kind of cupboard was it?
Wooden.
Like a solid wooden wardrobe sort of thing.
Yeah, no, it was like a you're actually in that house. You've actually been in that house. The at Clapham, it was like the mug drawer, like that's kind of elevated a little bit.
Like a kitchen cupboard.
Yeah, kitchen cupboard.
Right. Oh God. Well, that's a sad state of affairs.
It was, yeah, and it's a weird thing that like at the time didn't think it was sad, but it's only after, and this has been a theme, on the podcast. We've talked about it a few times, that I just cannot seem to work out what I'm feeling in the present. Like I'm always like I'm always like retroactively realized that I was happy or sad or confused or like I'm not good at labeling. I'm trying to get better at labeling my emotions and my feelings, but I find it quite difficult.
Yeah. No, that's it's good that it's not something that's happened again. I'm sorry that it did happen at the time. Do you want to test yourself now and describe how you're feeling right now? And then in a couple of days, when you listen back to the pod, do you think you'll have enough distance to know whether or not it's true?
No, I think it needs to be like months or years.
Okay, well, we could still
but right now, feeling pretty good, man. I don't want to speak too soon, but feeling pretty cool.
Well, you do have a beanie on, so that's already upping the cool factor.
Yeah. I actually changed beanies before you. I actually tried 2 different beanies.
Okay.
Here's the other one.
Yeah, I've seen the red one before. I'm liking this one today. It's a little bit more muted. It's classier.
Right. Thank you. I like it as well because I can bring, because it usually sits back down here.
Oh.
If I bring it up like that,
up. Yeah.
It kind of makes it like more of a Russian, like Eastern European, like kind of hat, which I like.
Yeah, I mean, you've got so many options with that. Like that's the kind of flexibility that a cheaper, flashier beanie probably doesn't offer. But this is more an adult beanie look, I'd say, for like a gentleman on the go who likes a bit of flexibility.
That's exactly who I am. That's exactly who I am.
Welcome to Deep Forward, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are here in the podcast world, delivering an audio file through the internet to be downloaded onto phones or computers for the purpose of an audience to then ingest that audio for some degree of pleasure or entertainment. Sitting through the internet with me, my friend Michael. Hey, what do you got to say today?
Hello. I got nothing to say. Do you write this intro down?
No.
By the way,
does it sound like I write this down?
Well, I just would never be able to come up with that.
Well, that's why I'm a professional. That's why I am the CEO of this podcast, and you're the president. And I'm Nick. Hi, Nick. Hi.
So, have you had a fight with your housemate yet?
Yes,
give me all the goss.
Yes, we have.
I hope you're falling apart.
Okay, we're starting off in a very dark place, and I'm starting to see how in a few days or months or weeks, those have gone backwards in time, we might discover that actually you were not in a good place, even though you said you were. So, so I'm looking forward to whatever realizations seep out.
It seeps out very gradually
over
time, which is why
that's why
I can't. I'm a frog being boiled slowly in water. Why is it a frog?
Because that's what they used to do to cook frogs. I don't know.
I thought that was lobsters.
Yeah, they did. They cooked frogs, right? Well, lobsters, I don't think try and get. They don't try and. Lobsters, yeah, I don't know. No, I got nothing to add to that.
I'm being boiled alive, is what I'm trying to say. Emotionally.
You're just reinforcing this narrative. It's like, oh, I'm good. I'm good. How are you? Well, I was just thinking about the other day how I bashed my head against the wall. And have you guys had any like emotional problems or fights? I really want you guys to fail. I just feel like I'm boiling alive. But no, things are good over here. How's things with you?
I just find it so much easier to lean into that side. It's like I can't. I would much rather receive an insult than a compliment because it's just way easier to deal with, and I'm sure there's something there too.
I saw an article.
Don't you feel
about
like
that.
Go on.
No, I know the end of that sentence was, and I haven't read it yet. So continue.
Fucking interrupted me for that. You can't. But I have been watching. I forgot to say this on the episode last week because it was for the recommendation last week. But I've been watching the show called Couples Therapy on SBS On Demand.
Hold on one second.
Funnily enough,
if you're doing a rec, I've got a rec. Should we kick off with a rec engine?
Fuck it, dude. Let's do it.
Fucking let's grab those fucking keys.
welcome to Deep Thoughts Recommendation Engine.
Alrighty. Kick us off.
Grab those fucking keys. It's called Couples Therapy. I actually found it through watching Good Grief.
Through Googling
also on
couples
SBS On
therapy.
Demand. No. It just came up as a. I don't know if it came up. It was on the same featured.
Right. This
title.
is on SBS On Demand.
On SBS On Demand. And I was just like, I was intrigued by it. It was Showtime as well. They always do good stuff. And it's just like you're a fly on the wall to. In season 1, there's like 4 couples, and they're half-hour episodes, and they're just sitting and watching a therapist.
This is real? This is documentary?
This is real.
Right.
It's like documentary style, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just like couples on a couch, and you kind of follow these couples. You see like a little bit of their like personal life and stuff. Not so much like dialogue, just like kind of overlay footage.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's so intense, and it's so awesome just to see how people are actually going through therapy. And as I said before, like for someone that's kind of struggles with labeling my emotions and stuff, it's weirdly like, it's kind of pornographic to me in a sense. Like it's so like, like I can't do that. Or does that make sense? Like
it's like a
voyeuristic.
But it's also sort of scratching an itch that you couldn't do yourself. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah. I don't know how to describe it.
Or is it like you're saying it's sort of like a fantasy in the sense that there's these characters.
It gets me off.
Yeah,
it gets me off, and like not in a sexual way. I'm just like, I love seeing it. Maybe it wasn't a great analogy, but it feels kind of voyeuristic a little bit. But like it's also seeing these people talk about their emotions and their feelings, which is something that I've just never done. And never been taught to do, and had no education on that whatsoever, and no one to like look up to in that regard. Like seeing those people do it, I'm like, it's so cathartic, and it's also helping me identify, okay, these people are having, like, this guy's having this issue and he's articulating it like this, and I can identify with that, and I've had that same kind of feeling. And it's like then hearing the therapist trying to untie the knots, it's so good. And there's a second season on SBS On Demand right now, but I'd highly recommend checking out Couples Therapy. It's really good.
That sounds fascinating. Yeah, I'll have to give it a look. I have one which is about as tonally far away as it could be from that. Have you seen Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar?
I fucking have. I watched it super blazed. It was so funny.
It is so funny. It is a studio movie, like a big Hollywood comedy. It must have been filmed during the pandemic, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It's Kristen Wiig and Annie Mumolo, who's her longtime friend and writing partner, and like a great character actress who you will have seen pop up in a bunch of things. It's a film about 2 wacko best friends who decide they need a holiday, and they go to Florida. And I think the best analogy, and this might feel like it's doing a little bit of a disservice, but it is to me like a 2020s Anchorman. It has the spontaneous, unpredictable, unrealistic, surreal, stupid, sort of not quite improv-y, but like looseness, shagginess of the story.
It's an SNL movie, essentially.
Yeah, but I feel like it is funny in a way that is not trying too hard. Like it's one of those movies, I think, where it feels like they just trusted that everyone was going to be funny and they didn't sweat the details too much. Like in a different movie, if you had a scene where a character sat down on the beach and then had a chat to a talking crab, the studio might go, do
God,
we
I remember that.
do we need to do that? And in this one, they just go with it. There's so many unrealistic things. There's a whole, like, the overarching plot of this movie was completely unexpected to me. And where in the opening moments where this film goes, like the left turn it took within like 3 minutes of starting completely shook me in a way that I was like, oh fuck, this is ridiculous, and I'm already in love with it. So if you have that itch that you still need scratched, that sort of loose Anchorman-y, if you like the Bridesmaids vibe, or if you like Kristen Wiig or her SNL performances, give it a look, because it's so stupid but so funny, and we know from things like Anchorman 2 how hard it can be to kind of replicate that vibe. So seeing something come out of nowhere and just hit like this is very satisfying.
Yeah, completely agree with that. I probably saw it like 6 months ago, but I remember just absolutely dying laughing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think now that you say that the Anchorman comparison is apt, it's like really silly, like absurdist plot lines, but it's not cheap in any way. It's like the laughs aren't cheap. Kristen Wiig has got to be the funniest woman on the planet.
There's a lot of good competition, but she is definitely up there.
Who's up there?
Oh god, I mean Tina Fey, Amy Poehler. You
They're
can
not.
go into
Kristen Wiig is viscerally funny.
I find
your Megan Stalter is up there as well.
Yeah,
Like
Kristen
they're just like
Schaal,
funny in their
I
bone.
find-
Like I'm not. Christian Schaal is really funny. Maybe it's all personal choice, I
Yeah,
guess.
sure.
But Kristen Wiig just makes me I just think she's the greatest.
She's terrific, absolutely. Yeah, and the dynamic between the two leads as well. Like they have such ridiculous voices, and like the whole affectation they take on. It is the reason I wondered whether it was filmed in pandemic is there is some notable green screen moments. Like there's some definite sets where I was like, it's very rare for me to be actively distracted by a green screen in a movie, and I noticed it a few times, and I thought, okay, this was definitely shot like in a row on this one set against a green screen, and I spotted it. And so I just wondered whether or not that was a compromise because they couldn't get back to the resort or something like that. So I don't know.
Just shooting off that, and also tying back to the last ep. By the way, having some really positive feedback about Good Grief coming in.
Oh, wonderful.
Dave Stewart, shout out to Dave Stewart. He said he watched the first 3 or 4 eps and loved it. He also said he I don't know if he watched if he listened to the last episode that we did about it before he watched it, or vice versa. But he said he also really enjoyed you talking about it. So
yeah, thank you.
Positive comments coming in.
Yeah.
But my question was, shooting off that, was like, now that you've done a show, are you just seeing the strings now when you watch other TV, or are you able to detach? Has it ruined TV a little bit for you?
No, it definitely hasn't ruined TV for me. I can detach pretty easily, but that's sort of in the moment, and then I think after I've watched an episode, like if a great episode of TV is happening, or a good movie, like I will sink into it, no problems. And then after the fact, my brain will tick away and say, "Oh, isn't it interesting that they did X?" Or "I wonder where they filmed Y?" Or even like I was just saying, did they shoot this on green screen because of the pandemic, or was that a choice, or did they choose to put their money elsewhere, or what was going on? So that kind of thing comes in afterwards, but thankfully, it doesn't tend to interfere with my enjoyment of watching things.
Right. Okay.
Other than just appreciating how hard it is to make something good. Like, I'm sure everyone has an intrinsic idea of the difficulty of making any kind of art, but God, making a good movie, there's literally thousands of people involved, and every chance is going to fail. And when one's good and it makes you laugh, and you're like, fuck, that was a literal huge achievement, because it was no guarantees that that's going to turn out funny, or that even if it was written funny, would
Yeah.
end up shot funny or be cast funny, or all of the ways it can go wrong.
Yeah, I was actually listening to Matt Damon. By the way, we should circle back to Matt Damon after this little.
Why? What's
yarn.
he been up to?
But and he was saying that, like, he was talking about bad movies, and he's done a few bad movies himself. And he was saying that, like, the question was, how do you know, like, I don't know, how do you end up in a bad movie? How is it possible, and what do you do when you realize that you're in a bad movie, and do you realize you're in a bad movie? And he was like, yeah, you can have like a really good script, but basically no bad movie starts with a bad script. Like, you can't have a bad script and then make a good movie. That doesn't happen. You can have a good script and then you can have a, shitty dynamic on set, or a bad director or whatever, or, it could be ruined in post-production. But like, you just basically have to ride the wave, and the only way to kind of mitigate the risk of making a bad movie is to surround yourself with people that you trust, or the people that you like working with. But yeah, but he's like sometimes, like he said, he's been on set and realized halfway through that this is going to be an absolute flop, and he's just like, there's nothing you can do. You're under contract. There is nothing you can do.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, well, this is just a storm that I'm going to have to ride.
But he's been relatively.
He's been pretty consistent. The movie that he was referencing was some. It was like he was like a samurai or something, like something I haven't even heard of.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I'm trying to think, because he hasn't really been in much of late, so I was just curious.
Yeah, he's had a pretty good run, hasn't he? The Great Wall was the one that he referenced. He was saying that he wanted to work with this. I haven't even heard of this movie, but he wanted to work with this like acclaimed director Yi Mao Zhang. He's done like a few other cool things, and then he said halfway through this movie, The Great Wall, like he signed onto the script, signed onto the movie because of the director and all the cool work he's done.
Yeah.
But then halfway through, there was like he had to have everything translated, all of his directions from the director, translated, and he was doing something a certain way, and then he asked for clarification on something, and the director said, "No, this is we want it to do American style." And he was like, "Oh shit, he doesn't want to do his Chinese, Chinese cinema.
Yeah.
He wants to do an American movie." And he was like, "This is not going to be good."
Yeah, interesting to hear that sort of candor from him about it.
Yeah, on Mark Maron. But yeah, what's your take on the Matt Damon stuff? Because this is I'm surprised by some of the backlash that he's getting, to be honest.
I'm a little surprised by it as well. Like, I think we know that there is an echelon of
Should
Hollywood.
we give context first?
Yeah, you go ahead.
So Matt Damon, in an interview, can't remember with who, brought up the fact that admitted the fact that he was using the F word to refer to homosexual men around his daughter, and his daughter actually pulled him up on using it and wrote him a letter and basically was saying that my daughter, called me out on this and made me stop using this slur. And there's been some backlash, even though he admitted that, he stopped using it, or, it was a confession of sorts that he should have known better in the first place. And is that basically it?
Yeah, I mean, the context was it's not like he was saying it in his personal life, I don't think. I think it was he's denied that he ever said it in just like regular life. His comments were about the fact that it was in well, actually that's not true, because the article,
I saw the clarification and it didn't seem to match up with what he originally said.
Yeah, exactly. So the article, the first one that came out, said that his daughter had taken him to task after he used they're calling it the F slur, which is, I mean, okay. Using the word in a joke.
But you can use it though, Nick, because it's your word.
Still not. Who cares?
Is that how it works?
Yeah, sure, but what does it? We all know what word we're talking about. His daughter had taken him to task after he used the word in a joke months ago. She went to her room and wrote a very long, beautiful treatise on how it's dangerous. I said, I retire the F slur. I understood. So his first comment said that he'd used it in a joke. And then the clarification that's come out is now saying, oh, I didn't use it in personal life. So they seem contradictory, and I'm not sure which one. So his follow-up clarification to Variety says, I explained that word was used constantly and casually and was even a line of dialogue in a movie of mine as recent as 2003. My daughter, in turn, expressed incredulity that there could ever have been a time where that word was used unthinkingly. To my admiration and pride, she was extremely articulate about the extent it would have been painful to someone in the LGBTQ+ community, regardless of how culturally normalized it was. I've never called anyone a faggot in my personal life, and this conversation with my daughter was not a personal awakening. I do not use slurs of any kind. So, right. I believe that's the latest.
I bet he did use it in his personal life. I mean, he's a boss. You're telling me that him and Ben Affleck, when they're playing cards together, smoking cigars, didn't drop an F-bomb here and there?
He's dropped it. I'm sure he's dropped it. But this is so to circle back around to it. Like, I think it has become clear that even though Hollywood is perceived and painted with this brush of liberalism, right? Which might be generally holistically true. There is still an echelon of ultra successful stars and producers and people in that world who are more centrist or conservative than we might like to think, because they're fucking rich, and
does this suggest conservatism?
No. Let me just circle around. So we've seen in things like the Scarlett Johansson stuff how she can be a little bit what's the word I'm looking for? Inconsiderate when it comes to the diversity questions and like her perspectives on like playing Asian women and that sort of thing skew more centrist or conservative than the absolute leftist sort of woke approach to that kind of stuff is, right? Right. And so I think in that same kind of era, same kind of angle, we like to think that Matt Damon is like 100% across all of this guys. Shit. One of the good guys. Like, he's fun. We like him on screen. We assume that his interview demeanor and all that kind of stuff is smart. Like, that's exactly his perception. You just like ascribe positive values onto it, and I think it's easy to forget that there's probably shitty things that all of these people have done or said in the past, and whether it's public or private. So I don't know. I don't really have. I only came into this story, I think, after the clarification statement had come out. So I only heard sort of I was talking about how I assume it was Stuck on You or something. I can't remember what movie it was he was talking about in 2003, where one of his characters dropped it, which is kind of surprising in retrospect. How recent that feels, because that's like a movie I've seen. Do you know what I mean? It's just odd. Yeah. It was just strange in my brain to do that time comparison. But
I get it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just said I get the time comparison. Like, everyone's doing that in their head.
Yeah. And I was just trying to think what I thought at that time. Like, did I notice it? Or did I not? I don't know. Yeah. I kind of lost my train of thought there. I think my final point was I'm not sitting here really holding a grudge against Matt Damon.
Yeah. And he's going to, whatever PR... His PR people are probably working overtime at the moment, but he'll be fine. But I guess, the thing is, like, are we... The interesting dilemma that came out of that was that here was a guy that admitted... And I think we talked about, like, Liam Neeson...
Yeah.
A few years ago. I remember that.
When he was angry and
he wanted
went out
to kill a
stalked.
black man or something.
Yeah.
He killed his wife.
Not killed.
Oh, he
his
just
wife.
wanted to kill any black man. No,
Yeah.
he said a black man killed his wife.
No,
and
he didn't kill his wife.
Raped his wife?
Yeah, something. I've looked it up. So he said he walked the streets with a weapon for a week years ago, hoping to take out his anger after someone close to him was raped by a black man. So he went out looking to attack a random, unrelated black guy because one black man raped someone close to him. So that came out.
That's not very logically sound.
That's where
logic?
you get the racist label, I think, for valid reasons.
And not to sorry to Matt Damon for lumping him in with that.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see a guy who is admitting something that he has corrected in himself, and admitting that he was a different person and that he's changed, and then still getting some, I don't know how intense the backlash is, but I've seen a lot of it. Are we ever is there ever going to be like a path to redemption? Are we going to have to be, perfect human beings for our entire lives? That's the interesting thing to me. And also, is it just like Twitter and Facebook making noise, and that people don't actually really give a shit, but it's just amplified because of social media?
I think that the question that it came from a valid place though, because there was an interview that the Sunday Times did where he launched into this story, and this is the original quote: "I made a joke months ago and got a treatise from my daughter." He said that, and he brought it on himself, right? They couldn't quote that if they didn't have it on audio.
He's admitting it. It's not like a gotcha thing. He's admitting it.
Well, I think that
he's saying, I used to do this shitty thing in my life, and now I've changed.
But I think my willingness to let it go is based on his secondary statement that he doesn't use it in his personal life, and that his context of, I was telling my daughter how this happened so recently, as in 2003, it was a common cultural thing, but we're all much further along. In that context, I'm cool, Matt Damon, give him benefit of doubt, this is overblown. If it's the original statement, and if Sunday Times subsequently came out and I don't know how intensive this scrutiny is these days, but whether or not it's something that they'd ever post the audio of, or the full interview or something like that. If that's the case, where he did say, oh yeah, months ago I used the word as a joke, then I'm sorry. I mean, hold on, Matt Damon, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you making fag jokes? That's you're not.
If it's months ago, for sure.
Yeah, if it's months ago, then I'm sorry, I do have a problem with you, Matt Damon, because that's you should know by now.
Yeah. No, the timeline matters, but it was from 2003, was it? That he was that's the story.
So
but his daughter's 15. But his daughter's 15 now. So
yeah, but I think if her birthday is 2006, then I suppose it predates when she was alive. So she's potentially grown up into a world where people aren't using this word unknowingly. And I think his context would be this was not that long ago that this was cool. I've said it in movies, right?
Sure. Yeah, and we all know that I've said shitty things on this podcast too. It's I was also listening to Tim Minchin, who I'm not I've never been the biggest fan of, but for some reason I was just listening to a song of his, and he uses it in one of his comedy albums. It's on Spotify from 2011. And he's doing it in a kind of it's kind of doing it from a point of view of a kind of a conservative, douchebag.
Yeah,
but it's still it's jarring to hear, and the context obviously matters. But then it's so weird how these words are just they're kind of magic. They have a magic to them. in
There's
that
a power.
you can just say this, and depending on who it comes from, it's like context is out the window, and just the fact that they're literally like magical spells. You're just like,
Yeah.
if a particular person says this thing, you know, that's the worst thing in the world. And it's that Louis C.K. has that great bit where he says, even if you know, news readers will say, oh, the N word, but he's like, you're just making me say it in my head. Like, we all know, as you said, but it's like, it's so weird. And I'm not saying that we should be saying these words or that words shouldn't be taboo. I'm just saying it's an interesting phenomenon that we as humans have decided that, you know, certain people can say certain words, and even though we all know the word that we're talking about and we're saying it in our head because we have to, that, you know, the verbalizing is the thing that kind of
sin.
Is
it is interesting.
bad
Absolutely. Part. Yeah, the just to touch back on the thing you were sort of kicking off on about the whole forgiveness from your mistakes thing. I think again, there's a sliding doors here. Like if Matt Damon is in the sincere way just reflecting on the fact how recent this occurred in movies and culture, I think he is a testament to the fact that people can be forgiven, because he said fag in a movie in 2003 and he's fucking Matt Damon still, you know, like his life's gone on. There hasn't been repercussions. There hasn't been a mob coming back and saying, hey, you said this back in. He's still Matt Damon. If there is the context where the original interview was true and he's using it as a joke, then I think there's some valid questions to raise about that, and we'll see how it plays out as to where we settle on, either narratively or as a society in our perceptions of him. Isn't it interesting as well to go and compare him to the Ben Affleck track at the same time, because Affleck's on this whole like they've been side by side but in like inverse of each other all this way through, where he was the fuck up for ages and Matt Damon couldn't do any wrong, and then this kind of like flip about a decade ago now, you started to see a little bit of Bourne's over, what's Matt Damon doing next? Not much, but now here comes Ben on the outside directing Argo. He's got the towns in there, you know, like the all of a sudden this perception's changed, and now here's fucking Ben Affleck out there with J-Lo again, living his best life, and Matt Damon's in the news for being a shithead, and you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
It's like neither of them can be good at the same time. They split the talent and the fortune between them.
It's so true, and I've just listened to two. He's doing the podcast circuit at the moment, so
which
I'm
one?
hot on
Affleck.
Matt Damon. And he was saying that this the perception of him versus Ben has started at Good Will Hunting, which they famously wrote together. But because Matt Damon was the lead in it, and he was like a smart guy, that the public's perception of Matt Damon was vastly different to Ben Affleck, who was kind of, you know, seen as a bit of a party boy, and I guess he did, you know, he was dating J-Lo back, you know, in the early 2000s, whatever. And they just kind of, even though they never stopped catching up and they never stopped, you know, exchanging ideas and whatever, it was just complete public perception. Even though, you know, Matt Damon's, well, he thinks that he says that he's not smarter than Ben, but they've had a very interesting trajectory, those two.
Yeah.
And like you said, like Ben Affleck's done some really cool stuff. Like he's directed
but
Argo.
To be fair, like he also did, like after their careers kicked off, he did some shit. Like those early 2000s for Affleck, like Daredevil
Gigi.
And like
Giggly
there was
or whatever.
Not some good stuff. So he didn't do himself any favors there when he started taking other roles.
Yeah, I guess not. And he's back on the booze again, isn't he?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, well, we can only wish them the best.
I do wish them best. Like, you know, we all love Ben and Matt.
Yeah.
Everyone loves them. Just a couple of Boston lads.
Yeah.
Trying to make it out in this world.
Yeah.
You know how it is, Nick.
I'm a Boston lad.
not dissimilar to you and me. I would say I'm the Ben Affleck in this relationship.
But I get to say fag without anyone complaining, so that's okay.
Poetry, dude. By the way, pretty cool that Aisling B liked our post the other day.
Yes, that was exciting. I wonder whether she gave us a listen.
Yeah.
Do you think she'll give us a plug in return?
You'd fucking hope so, mate. Like, we gave her a pretty decent shout out.
Pretty. We got dozens of followers.
Yeah. She, yeah. We're climbing up there on the Instagram. We're actually losing followers on Facebook. I don't know if you've seen this.
It's because we're not. It's because we're not hitting any parsnip news out there. We're not getting the Snapchat going, and all of those.
Well,
those
that's your
hitters.
zone.
Yeah.
You know that's your territory there.
Yeah. We're sort of in a ramble chit chat thing. I feel like we're going to do some seggies in a second, but can I just ask one tiny follow up? And I don't know how deeply we need to get into this, but where are you sitting on the Give me a cancellation Me Too spectrum hot takes on like Louis C.K., on your Thomas Middleditches, like where's your mood on these people? Are you following Louis? Where you at?
Yeah, I am following Louis. I'm still on his mailing list, if that's what you mean.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the podcasts I listen to most is one of his openers, so I hear a lot about Louis C.K. He's actually making another movie now.
He's making another movie?
Stay tuned for that. Yeah, he's making a movie apparently.
With who?
I'm assuming it's self-financed. Like, no one's going to make that.
But like, who's going to be in it?
Joe List is the only one that I know who is his comedian.
Right.
I'm not really sure what your question is. Like, what is my...
Well, you were talking about the sort of the when are we going to forgive people, the whole cancellation thing, which has been a bit of a theme for you, for a little while now. And I was just curious whether or not you had a palate for these people, or whether you're...
I would say that I'm easily like triggered by like people getting cancelled. Like, I think the idea I don't want to use the word cancel culture, but I'm going to have to. I think cancel culture is a phenomenon that's happening right now, even though a lot of people don't like to admit that it's happening. And I think it's directly a result of social media. I think people have been getting quote unquote cancelled for, decades prior. But because of social media, people are getting taken down for, past mistakes, because you can unearth things. It's just the way the media landscape has panned out. Things from years and years ago can get unearthed, and you can basically lose your whole livelihood for those things. Like, I think there is the other thing is that it seems that you can lose your career, you lose your job for not even holding the same the right ideas or having the right stance on things, which I think is extremely worrying. Do you want to chime in? Do you look like you're about to say something?
No, I wasn't. I was listening.
So I think I could be more sympathetic to, I don't know, if something's legit, like Harvey Weinstein. I know that's beyond cancellation, but with things like Louis C.K., I do feel like, yeah, I'm not as easily. I'm able to separate the art from the artist, and I also think that is a personal choice, and that it should be a personal choice, and that if you are able to, if you're able to still listen to a guy like Louis C.K., knowing all the things that he's done, then that should be okay. It should be kind of like, oh wow, you're able to do that, rather than that's not cool. Like you should be turning your back on this guy. Like, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
But if that, just at that last point though, if you're like, why do you think someone should be given it? Oh, that's interesting. Like, oh, good for you. Like,
No,
isn't
I'm saying, if you as a fan, if you should be able to have the choice to or make a personal choice whether or not you still continue to support the artist.
Yeah, I agree with that. But then you were saying that a third party looking at your choice to, patronize Louis C.K.'s art, you want the response to be like, oh, that's interesting, good for you. Not why are you doing that? And that's just the point where when I lose you a little bit, because surely if that's a personal choice, you're still subject to external criticism of that, right?
Yeah, I guess I just don't feel like it's not just criticism. It's like you're a bad person.
That's
It's
criticism,
like
isn't it?
accusatory.
Do you think they're
It's just
not
like-
a bad person? Like, what
Do I think?
is it not valid for someone to think another person that supports someone who's done sexual harassment crimes or whatever is a bad person? Can't they think that?
They can think that, but I just okay, yeah, they can think that. You can think anyone's a bad person, but my point is that some people are able to separate those things. Some people are still able to watch a Roman Polanski movie, and I wouldn't take that as an indictment or a judgment on that person if they continue to watch this artist's stuff or support them. Like, I don't think it's an indictment on the viewer or the fan. It doesn't say anything about their personality.
I don't
what I
know
mean?
that I agree with that. I think it does say something. It's not meaningless that they can or choose to do such a thing, right? I agree that there's like there. This is a bit of a wild comparison, but if you think about the foundation of the United States of America, like all of those founding fathers who are icons of history and of the nation and of what became America, many of whom were geniuses and revolutionaries or diplomats or politicians, and all deserving of renown in their own way, had slaves, like they were still fucking racists, and there is somehow a ability within, I guess in this case, the American culture, but perhaps culture more generally, to separate and say, yeah, these people owned slaves, but they also created the Constitution, which enabled the growth of a democratic society, and people do seem capable of splitting those or holding those two thoughts in their head. So I suppose there is something to be said for a positive ability to both know something and investigate or appreciate the works they created, know something negative or bad about a person, and also still respect what they created. I suppose the comparison here, or the contrast here in a modern day context, to me seems to be that when this person is still around, when they're still potentially profiting off what they're doing, then the choice is not an abstract one in a historical context. It's a, do I want to pay someone who did a bad thing money? And I think that deserves to be examined, doesn't it? Doesn't a choice to give a person who admitted to or was found guilty of doing bad things, giving them money, doesn't that say something about the person who gives them money?
Well, I guess I just don't actually see the connection between taking away someone's livelihood and as the punishment for the bad thing that they've done. Like, I don't see how those two are connected. Like, maybe if you're, you know, if you're basically, is it because you're enabling them to keep doing what they're doing?
Yeah, I
Or
mean, if the
to
livelihood
keep
is
doing
where
the
they
bad
did
thing?
the thing, then sure, right? But
Right,
the other
but then
thing
if
is, like,
you're-
you do
but then
understand taking away a
I'm just going to
livelihood.
interrupt you. Just
Can I-
with the Louis C.K. thing, your funds aren't going to do it. Like, he's not continuing to do it because I bought his special.
Well, he's got to get money from somewhere, right? Like, making a movie is going to cost money, but then he hopes to make money off it somehow, right? He will sell it to you. So you choosing to buy that special or buy that movie is giving him money, isn't it?
Yeah, but so what? Like, what does that have to do with the bad thing that he did?
Because why isn't it a rational argument to make that if he was in a media context abusing the power dynamics that he had to place women into sexually uncomfortable positions, that he shouldn't be then given another opportunity in a media organization in a position of power to do the same thing again after he's proven he can't be trusted in that area, after people suffered as a result of what he did. It's like, let me take it to a carceral contrast, which is where I was going to go previously. In terms of taking away people's livelihood as a punishment, that's called fucking jail. If you murder someone, they get taken out of the context where they were living their lives, and they're put in a place where they can't do that thing again. This is a standard punishment. It's just not at that level, right?
But we also have jail, though. Like, jail still exists, and for the things that a lot of people are getting quote unquote cancelled for, they're not actually crimes. Like, they're shitty people, but they're not.
I mean, we're talking in so many generalities here that it's impossible to say one way or the other, right? There are some
such a
things.
spectrum. Yeah.
There are some things which are definitely crimes. There are some things which could have been prosecuted that people don't choose to pursue. There are some things that could have been crimes, but they've passed the statute of limitations. There are some things which could have been crimes, but they're in the wrong district. It's no point getting into the specifics about that stuff. You're right that there is a criminal system that does exist and should be used against people who've committed crimes. But my point was merely just at a high level, you stated that you found it difficult to understand how taking away someone's livelihood was an adequate punishment. And I'm just making the comparison that we've done that, historically speaking, now for quite a while, where you can take someone out of their life for the bad thing they did. That was the only comparison I wanted to do.
Point taken. Yep. But is the goal for these people to never work again, or just not in the context that they were found to be doing the bad thing that they did?
Again, we're talking generalities here. I think my previously stated position is I'm all for people bettering themselves, acknowledging their mistakes, getting on with their coming to terms with the harm that they caused and actively trying to improve themselves and the world so society is better off than it was. Like, I want to give people the space to do better. I think that the Louis situation in particular is one where it felt like he didn't live up to the standards he set himself, and he didn't actively try and improve the world around him and atone for it in a sincere fashion. He sort of very quickly took on this sort of persecution complex, which I find quite unpalatable. So in that context, I'm not really interested in seeing him in that comedic context anymore, because it doesn't seem like he's earned the right to re-enter that world. If there was a sincere kind of effort made from people, I think, assuming that the people around them and in that industry or in that sphere get to choose whether or not they're working with this person too, sure, let them back in. But if not, then I think it's fair to say that if you've not made a sincere effort and you can't be trusted in this area, then I don't think you should be able to step back into those industries or workplaces.
Okay, well, yeah. Well, I guess we just disagree on this.
So you
But,
think that even if they've done a bad thing, and even if they haven't sincerely tried to get better for it, they should still be able to work in that same area?
well, look, from another angle here, it's basically cancel culture is just the market determining what the market
100%.
wants.
Yeah.
My issue with that is that it's fake. It's like people don't actually care that much about this stuff. It's just clickbait and amplified on social media. So it seems like people care when it's actually just, online publications and news outlets just putting out, trying to drum up fury. Like I to a certain degree, I think, and again, it depends on the severity of the crime.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you know
Or
this, or it's probable that some of the things there are overblown because it is just clicks and stuff, but like there will be other things which are not, right? It's so hard to make
Exactly. Like some of it's
generalized statement.
obvious.
Yeah.
Some of it's obvious, as was evident with, what did the Chaser do the other week, where they were like fairy bread. You can't call it fairy bread.
Oh, yeah.
And
The
they
interns.
faked that thing.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of pandering to this,
Yeah.
right wing thing, which was funny. But like they also made the point that a lot of this exists purely online and not actually in people's hearts and minds.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we sort of circled this in a couple of directions now. It just increasingly feels like the internet is bad, right? Like this is ultimately where we're getting to, right? Where there have been quite sincere societal impacts from this thing in democratic terms, in social terms, in career terms.
But then we also wouldn't have had the Me Too movement without the internet. So there is some good that can certainly come of the internet and social media, but it is just very hard to moderate because we're basically just working this shit out as we go along. So no one really knows what they're doing, and it's such a reactive process that it's like we bend, break, reset. Like that's how it's going to work, and that's my prediction for how it's going to happen. Like what's going to happen with, cancel culture. It's like people will probably just get, too tired of canceling everyone, so that we'll come back to a more stable and rational approach as a society.
So if that's the case, which might be true, why are you concerned about it? Why are you worried that people are, being too unwilling to forgive people, or too extreme in their cancellation, vendettas? Why do you care then if you think it'll sort of all even out in the end?
Well, because it's so blatantly unfair and it's so blatantly inconsistent. That's the reason, and people are losing their livelihoods, and it does seem, authoritarian to me to try and get everyone to agree with the same party line and the same ethos and the same, think the same way, and we're losing nuance, and we're losing, discourse. In some ways, we're gaining. The long form podcast is booming now, so people are craving this. But I just think that we're losing actual people for silliness, and we'll look back on this as just a bit of a silly time.
But hasn't historically there always been some kind of in and out, and whether that's, you look back 200 years and you've got the social strata of the haves and have-nots, the rich and the poor, or whether it's like the 1950s and you have, endemic racism everywhere, or the 80s and you have gay people, or even like just women, all the way. Like look back at Monica Lewinsky, right? The narrative around that scandal at the time was how what a horrible person Monica Lewinsky was, and there was definitely like obviously Bill Clinton was under investigation for it. Like he didn't escape without attention on it, but the narrative around her was this like slut shaming kind of craziness, right? Where I think historically, or with a bit of distance, you go back and you go, this was a woman who was,
So fucked up.
it is fucked up. Like, it was a woman who was in, the fucking president.
She was
there.
She was vilified. She was Joan of Arc, essentially.
Yeah, and that, I think, is a prior times version of cancellation, right? Like, you've got that whole reflection now on Britney Spears, right, and how they treated those pop idols with this kind of daggers and sharp teeth, and the way that they would crucify everything they wore, the way they looked, that kind of thing. And that was an era, I think, of cancellation, where the in-group was the straight white men or whatever, but probably just men. That was an in-group, and the outs and the cancellation was on people who didn't fit that definition of what was acceptable behavior, right? You had there's always been these kind of tribal motions in society as it comes to terms with who gets to be a part of it and who doesn't, right? And I guess my ultimate point here is that if now that process is taking place in the sphere of these men who've got away with shit, or now it's come out that they've done shady shit, that just seems to me like part of a process that's spanned decades and isn't inherently something unique to now. It's just the now is it's applying to a certain group of people. Do you think like Monica Lewinsky had an easy time getting a job after that? Do you think like the cancellation has always been around? It's just now it's applying to a group of people who don't like it very much.
Well, now it's also applying to men, but you're just assuming that it's just happening to men. It's also happening to women. It's happening to Chrissy Teigen and Ellen. And,
absolutely.
Is your argument that we should just allow, cancellation to happen because it's a natural process?
No, I just think that the outcry that comes from men, and it does tend to typically come from men, about how unfair this is, seems to have only come out because they're now the subject of the gays, where previously when it was happening to Britney Spears or whatever, or Janet Jackson when her boob came off at the Super Bowl, or like all these kind of things, they weren't yelling out like, "Oh, no, this is we can't be canceling women's careers just because a guy ripped her bra off during the Super Bowl." My point was just that it's only, I think, because men have now started to suffer it themselves that there's been more of this outcry about how is this fair. Well, it's never fucking been fair. It's just that now you're also subjected to it because finally the rest of the world, thanks to the internet, has a little bit more say over it all.
Well, first of all, isn't that what you would expect anyway? Like, if gay people had it really good for like thousands of years, and then that like once you're affected, that's when you can speak up, and like maybe we should all try and be more conscious of how every group is being affected as we go. But like that, what else would you expect?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that's a broader question about societal empathy, right? Like, how many groups on the out band together for solidarity because they recognize how difficult it is to be persecuted, right? Like, you see allyship between different disparate communities that have been subject to kind of pressures, and potentially there's an argument there that we all need to be more empathetic about how this affects other people. But I suppose my counter would be that there has been a degree of empathy and understanding from certain demographics previously in a way that was not reciprocated by the core like majority, like the absolute straight white male majority didn't have to have that empathy because they always got what they wanted.
I certainly don't disagree with that, and I think that's definitely a factor. But I think that argument underplays the role of social media. I mean, that has rapidly changed so quickly in the last 10 years and 5 years.
100%. I agree. Yeah.
And so now we're not seeing, just major celebrities getting taken down. We're seeing like the guy, the tech guy that works at Google getting taken off. Like we're seeing all these little guys or the medium guys getting taken down as well. I mean, it's affecting everyone. It's affecting. I mean, now I'm hearing myself say, cancel culture is affecting, the little guy. And I don't mean to say that. I think I do agree that people need to be held accountable for their actions. I just think the people who there's no one in the cockpit of this thing at the moment, and the internet is just kind of driving itself, and it's out of control, and there's like no, I don't know. It's just inconsistent. It's inconsistent and unfair. And yeah, maybe I'm just another white guy who's like, oh, now I'm being cancelled, or I'm, this might affect me, or how am I going to get a job, when I said the N-word on a podcast 5 years ago, which I didn't do, by the way. I've never said the N-word on here, but, yeah, I think that was basically my point. That it's just out of control, and it's like there's no rhyme or reason to it. It seems.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a broader discussion about social media, which is due then. But interesting debate there, or discussion.
Oh, thanks for bringing it up. I've been wanting to kind of talk about this with you for a while, but I've been too scared to bring it up.
Ah, no, it's good,
to be honest.
If you want more of that, we have talked over the years about Louis. I think there's a couple. I think there's one called Huey Lewis in the News, which was about that when it first came out. So look around that era, and we had quite a deep chat about it then as well, if you're curious. And you can find plenty more of that in the podcast feed on deepthought.podbean.com or on your podcast provider of choice. You can also follow us on Facebook. Apparently we're losing followers, so if that's you, no hard feelings. Twitter.com/deepthought, that's got all of our updates when an episode goes live, and Instagram's got photos and that sort of thing. Check out our jingles in the SoundCloud, and you can, of course, send us an email to deepthought@gmail.com. That's where we answer your questions and your comments. Thank you for playing along.
I'm worried that I'm going to get some unsavory comments thrown my way after all that.
Unsavory? I think you might get some comments, but I don't think unreasonable.
Yeah. By the way, how speaking of... Oh, actually... Yeah, fuck it. How I won't say who it is, but this podcast now has 2 degrees of separation from Elon Musk, which is pretty cool, man. And just so you know,
quite surreal.
I've already asked to have him on. Waiting to hear back.
Oh, good. Well, that's not going to happen, but cool.
He does some
cool.
He's done some weird shit.
He's done some shit. Yeah, I mean, this would be up there. This would be up there. But sure.
He named his baby X-12.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
Going on like
there's
an amateur podcast isn't.
There's absolutely
isn't
no guarantee that he wouldn't come on.
If he's, yeah. I mean, Jeff Bezos. By the way, what are you thinking of billionaires in space? Do you hate them?
Yeah, not a huge fan. They didn't even fucking go to space. If you want to impress me, go to fucking Mars. Like, don't just tip a toe into the atmosphere and be like, ooh, I went to space. Actually, get in. It's like standing in the waves at the shore, and you don't want to wade in because your dick's gonna get cold for a second. Just jump in. Rip off the Band-Aid.
Yeah, dude.
Anyway.
I mean, I'll tell you what, if I had $1 billion, first thing I'd be doing is going to space. Tell you what. Or almost space.
Okay, Michael, how do you feel about a little bit of science news?
I'd bloody love some, mate.
Well, let's put the fucking jingle in.
If I can do it.
I'm gonna press the jingle button now.
Put up some fucking science news or some bullshit now, yeah.
Yeah, let's put the music audio into the file.
Bergen.
It's that time. Time for science news.
Okay, this is going to be a little bit intense. This is sciencey. I promise you science news. I'm telling you right now, there's science in this, and I'm just warning you. You got to get ready because I'm gonna have to get some focus. I'm gonna have to walk you through some principles here, and then I'm gonna blow your fucking mind. You ready?
Blow me, baby.
Okay, let's leave that in the edit.
Blow my mind.
This one comes thanks to Sean, our favorite friend Sean, who has sent through this incredible article. Do you have it open in front of you?
Got it open, yep.
This is an article about how we are blind to the color blue. Okay, let me walk you through some.
Already.
I'm gonna walk you through some bits and pieces here. We're gonna join some dots. Okay, light travels very fast. Yes. But then when it hits certain objects like water or glass, it gets refracted and the direction bends. Following me?
Yeah, I was just laughing. I thought that was going to be your science news. Life travels really fast, and that's science news.
That's science news for this week. Okay, that's step one. Light, when it hits a different material, refracts through that material, right? Assuming it's transparent. Yep. That's what lenses are for. We use a lens to focus light. You can shape the path of light with a lens. So that will concentrate different beams of light into one focal point on the other side of the lens, right? We're building up to the idea of the eyes, right? So a lens bends the light. Now, there's a thing called chromic aberration. No, there isn't. There's a thing called chromatic aberration, which is the principle that different wavelengths of light, different colors of light, bend different amounts when they pass through the prism. So that's how you get a rainbow. All of the different wavelengths split out different amounts and you see the full spectrum of light. That's called chromatic aberration. So when you are trying to focus on something, those focal points of the different colors of light are actually different distances away from each other. So in our eyes, no one lens, i.e. no one eye shape, would be able to simultaneously focus on the color red, the color green, and the color blue because of the basic physics of those wavelengths, right? Those focal points are in different places. So the brain, and you know, this is via evolution, over the development of the eye, basically picked a spot which is equidistant between the green and the red wavelengths. The focal points of the green and red wavelengths of light are actually quite close together. And then the blue is quite significantly further away. So the eye is sort of perfectly targeted to split the difference between green and red. And the upshot of this is that it basically fakes focus for the color blue, right? That's my first big headline here. Your eye isn't actually able to focus on light that's the color blue, but we do, right? We see things that are blue in focus. Are you following along with me so far?
So it's approximating blue?
So it's still receiving the color blue, but not with definition. So it can't focus on it. It just sort of takes it as color information. So it's like that splotch over there is blue. That thing over there is blue. But here's the genius of the brain. The brain takes the focus information from the green and red wavelengths of light and knows that that bit's sharp. That's what it's designed to hit. That's where it's actually getting focus, is in between those green and red wavelengths of light. And it just ignores the blurriness that it's getting from blue.
Wow.
And it just uses that for pure color. It just fills it in with color, but it ignores the blur. So your brain in real time is processing only the focal points of green and red, and it just it's like a bucket tool on an image processor. It just dumps the blue in where it spots generic blue. And so that's how you can look at something that has blue on it and see it in focus, even though biologically our eyes are incapable of seeing it. So let me now actually blow your mind. Let me destroy it for you in real time.
Wait, that was pre-blow.
That's blow number 1. Now let me really finish you off. This article Oh, I was doing so well. Okay, this article here, which I've put in the chapter title, I encourage all of you to click on it in your podcast links right now. Open up your podcast player, click on this chapter title.
I'm on it right now.
At the bottom of this article, well, the article's great. It's very clear. It explains what I just said out loud about the science stuff. But then you get to photos of the Earth. Okay, don't scroll ahead of me here, Michael. Let's go through it
okay, I'm on the Earth.
So the Earth, there's a generic picture of the Earth. So to visualize how little definition we actually get for sharpness in blue, what we're going to do here is take an image, split it into the red, green, and blue components, blur one of the channels, blur one of those colors, and then put the image layers back on top of each other. You following me?
Sure.
So we're going to split off this image into 3 different colors, blur one of them and put them back together, and then see how our eyes interpret it. So the original image of the Earth has a bit of green, has a lot of blue, has a bit of red, right? So scroll down to the second picture here. This is where we take the green channel out, you blur it, and then you put it back together on top. So on the left-hand one, we're seeing the gray. That's blurring the left-hand one. And then on the right, we're recombining it. And you see a blurry Earth, right? That's not a very sharp image, right?
No.
Now let's do this.
More green as well.
Correct. Now let's do the same with blue. Scroll down to the third image. We take the blue channel out, we blur it, and we put it back in together with all 3 layers. The one on the right is sharp. So even when you've gone out, taken the blue, blurred it to all fuck, relayered it on top of it, our brains still look at that blurry as fuck blue channel and say, yeah, that's a sharp picture of the Earth. It looks exactly identical to the original.
Shit.
And yet, it is not the case. There is our brains playing tricks on us, taking the sharpness from red and green, ignoring the blurry blue channel, and just coloring that blue back in. It's ridiculous.
Oh shit, dude! This is
let's go one further.
Well here.
Let's go to the fourth image. Let's do it to the point where it is so fucking blurry you'd find it almost inconceivable that you could see anything after it. The heavily blurred blue channel is basically a smudge. It's like a thumb on the lens of a camera. And yet, you recompile it back in with the other layers. It looks a lot bluer, but you still see definition. It is a true marvel of the human brain and its evolutionary development. It's kind of remarkable.
Wow. Are you going to read this conclusion to sum up?
Yeah, I will. Our brain extracts some color information from the blue channel, but delegates sharpness to the red and green channels that are in focus. This result is so astonishing that you have to wonder if there is something that may go awry from modifying and displaying these images on a computer. This is one of many examples of our brains being much more powerful than our eyes. Too often we think of our eyes as perfect cameras. However, it is the brain that is able to accommodate for all of the optical shortcomings in order to resolve the world.
Dude, that's unreal. That's so cool.
It's excellent. Please go out and check it at home. It's hard to sum up the I guess optical illusion just in audio, but please go have a look. It's great.
It's so I still can't get my head around the idea that like colors, there's like no colors really. It's just like waveforms and like just frequencies of light traveling at you, and that like do dogs see the color blue?
They'll see the color blue, but they might not. I'm saying generally, some animals would pick up the wavelength of light we call blue, but we don't know that they'd see that color in the way that we see
That
it.
color. Yeah. And also, like, blue is like the most unnatural. Blue doesn't come up in nature that much.
What are you talking
Does it?
about? The ocean.
But that's not. It's the ocean isn't blue.
Here it is.
It's the sky. It's just reflecting the sky.
No, it's
And
not.
that's just the ocean's not blue.
Yes, it is.
No, the ocean just is it?
No, water is very faintly blue.
The sky is
The sky is also blue. You are right. Yeah, that is true.
The sky is blue, and the ocean reflects the sky. But the ocean is clear.
No,
What's
it's
blue
not.
about the ocean?
No, it's not. The water.
Water's not blue, dude.
Yes,
it's
clear. Yes, it is.
What are you
If there's
talking
clouds, the ocean is still blue.
Is it? What's blue? What's blue about the ocean? If
Well, why
nothing
is anything
blue
any
in the
color?
ocean?
It's the wavelength of light that's being bounced back, right? That's the
What part of the because water is clear, so what part? It's transparent.
but
So
what is not?
What are we looking at here?
I mean, I don't know how much first principles like light stuff we need to talk about here, but like the color you see is the color that's. So when something looks red, that is the only wavelength of light that the physical object is bouncing off into your eyes. It's absorbing all other wavelengths of light and leaving red. So it bounces off, and that's why we see it as red. So water is blue because the component molecules of it reflect the wavelengths of light that are blue, and it's hard to see that until it is in such a large body of water, large aggregate, that you see it en masse.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know about that theory.
You don't know if
I
light.
disagree.
I mean,
No, I just I
pure
just don't see if
water.
you-
Pure water is blue. It just has a very slight blue color. That's an
Why,
intrinsic property of the way that it absorbs and scatters white light. And if there's like salt or other shit in it, it can give it a different color. But it's only colorless in like small quantities.
Well, what about this then, Nick? When it's nighttime, the sea is black. How to explain that?
I can't. You got me.
Daytime, blue. Nighttime, black.
Black. There
I
we
rest
are.
my case, dude. I rest my case.